training to have our youths being heard and to be part of the Talanoa sessions. And so again, we are very happy to have two of them joining us this morning, and they will have their own time later on. Okay. And as such, this session that we are having now is both a brief recap of some of the stuff that we already talked about, recap, but also perhaps restatement. But at the same time, there will be some further thinking that are discussed here in this first presentation. So as I said, it's both recap, but also some new rethinking following the first training that we had. Thanks, Kelly. I'd like to, first of all, point out that churches need both continuity and change. And this is important for me to state because there has been fair bit of criticism leveled against several or many of our churches in the region, saying that the churches are too conservative and are not willing to change. So it is necessary in the context of REM to point out that churches need both continuity and change, whether it is in theologies and doctrines, or the readings and interpretations of the Bible, or whether it is in the liturgies and worship practices. There needs to be continuity, and at the same time, there also need to be changes. And from the REM point of view, the primary determining factor for both continuity and change is a prophetic reading of the signs of the times. Prophetic reading of the signs of the times. The signs of the times here is not used in the sense that it is used in many many Christian circles. Reading the signs of the times here is not about pointing to the parousia, not pointing to the end of times. Reading the signs of the times here is looking at the economic, the political, the cultural, the religious dynamics that happen, and the results of these dynamics, and then responding in ways that are life-giving, in ways that affirm life, and in ways that bring transformation, and in ways that are just. So whether we need the change or not, this for REM is the determining factor, reading the signs of the times. And for churches in the region, some of the signs of the times include, for example, the worsening situation of the climate emergency. The signs of the times includes the geopolitical dynamics that is happening. It includes the devastation of the forest and ecosystems. And so these are the examples of the signs of the times that I'm talking about. And these are the signs of times that REM looks at and respond in ways that are just and life transforming. Now, this is again perhaps a summary of what we also covered. I would like to highlight that the search for alternatives is not new for the churches in the Pacific, and especially for Pacific member churches. It has always been a key aspect of faith and a key aspect of practice of PCC member churches, the majority of the churches. So, for example, way back in 2001, at the Watershed Ecumenical Conference, centering around the Island of Hope. The Island of Hope was an alternative to economic globalization. And then we have in 2010, Rethinking the Household of God. And this Household of God was a challenge and an alternative to the Pacific Plan by the Pacific Islands Forum Secretariat in 2005. And then in 2018, we have the REM framework, which is a call for an alternative to Western capitalistic forms of development and measurements of well-being. And so it is important to bear in mind that for churches in the Pacific, seeking for alternatives, searching for alternatives has always been an integral part of the faith and practice of the churches. So when we talk about REM as an alternative to Western capitalist forms of development, this search for alternatives goes back many years. So from a processual and progression perspective, the REM framework could be seen as the culmination and embodiment of both the Island of Hope from 2001 and the Household of God, Rethinking the Household of God in 2010. And there were several others in between 2001 and 2010, and even 2010 and 18. There were movements during those years. And so when we talk about creating and establishing and nurturing a movement, in truth, the movement of ideas and theologies and faith in practice have taken 20 plus years to reach the stage that we are at today. But if we take into account PCC's role and actions against other evils in the region, such as nuclear testing and dumping in the region, this actually goes much further. And the General Secretary of the PCC also knows this quite well. But when we talk about the alternatives that we are looking at, 20 years plus, and this is quite remarkable considering the late intrusion of Christianity in the islands. 400 years, 5 maximum number of years that Christianity has come to the islands. And within, say, 20 plus years, churches have moved towards seeking changes, seeking alternatives, and moving beyond what used to be their comfort zones, and now engaging with various developmental issues. And this, for us who work in this space, is a very encouraging movement that has happened and is happening. So as we have said, the REM framework is an alternative to the neoliberal capitalistic market. And again, just putting in a nutshell what we covered already, but from various perspectives and multiple experiences, ecologically, culturally, indigenously, socially, economically, and spiritually, the prevailing market model or growth model is neither appropriate nor sensitive to the island economies of Oceania. From ecological perspectives, we talked about the destruction of the ecosystems for terrestrial ecosystems, marine ecosystems, the destruction of that, the indigenous knowledge and wisdom that have been sidelined and put away in favor of more modern Western-oriented kinds of knowledge. When we look at it from economic perspectives. Also, we can see that from that angle, what we have seen and experienced is the prevailing market model, growth model, is not really appropriate, and it's not sensitive to the island economies. So REM presents as an alternative to the growth model, because it derives its substance, purposes, and drive from the wealth of oceanic worldviews, values, and spirituality. And this were what we talked about also in the first training. So because of that, REM calls and stands for development that one is sensitive and responsive to both the integrity and life nurturing roles of land, sea, skies, ecosystems. Two important things here: the integrity of these entities themselves, the integrity of the land, the forest, the seas, the ecosystems. They have their own integrity, but at the same time, they are also the very ones that nurture and support life of the communities in the island countries, and therefore development that is sensitive both to the integrity of these ecosystems, but also to their role as supporting, nurturing the human lives in these islands. Two, one that prioritizes the place and role of indigenous and traditional knowledge and wisdom systems in development discourse and practice. For a very long time, this indigenous knowledge, traditional knowledge, and wisdom did not take any part in development discourse or in practices of development. And so REM calls for that to happen. And number three, embraces and advances healthy and wholesome communal societal relationships, connections, and networks. This is a very important part of the type of development that REM holds and advances. It is the experience in many societies that the growth model that is going on in the island countries has caused a lot of social disintegration, societal disintegration, has caused a lot of animosity and disputes over resources, over land, over sea, over marine resources, and all of that. And therefore, that's why it is not appropriate. And four, affirms that well-being is defined and experienced variously, and well-being cannot be defined as a one-size-fits-all category. Something that we also talked about and is taken further. Not only alternative approach to development, but also an alternative approach to measuring well-being. REM embraces and advances a view, an experience of well-being that one, it moves beyond and outside of conventional and standard economic measures such as GDP. I've highlighted this also during our first training. Well-being that does not just take financial, economic, and material wealth as its primary determinants. And at the moment when we look at the growth model, this is clearly what a big determinant of well-being, economic, financial, material wealth. Number three, well-being that upholds the non-economic and non-financial aspects. These include things like healthy relationships, communal social connections, the virtues of life, for example, love and respect, these are virtues of life that are not are non-economical and non-financial in their significance. And the people's spirituality that is attached to the environment, attached to human beings, and attached to to, to God. So upholding these non-economic and non-financial aspects of well-being is a very, very important part of measuring, viewing well-being according to REM. And continuing on in that line, um, well-being that affirms the integrity and the beyond monetary value of land, sea, sky, interwoven mats of life. Okay, such as the cultural significance, the aesthetic significance, the religious and indigenous significance, medicinal significance. There's these kinds of um, many of them beyond monetary value, and so affirming the integrity of all of this is an important part of understanding well-being according to REM. So in other words, REM advances a renewed and broadened view of well-being, which affirms that human well-being is not independent of, but is deeply interwoven with the well-being of its constituents, its rhythms and processes, the whole of life well-being, development, spirituality. It is centrally about the quality of life, which is deeply interwoven and interweaving. Now, just to point out some of the challenges, a couple of the challenges and implications amongst many others, so that amidst the ongoing secularizing, globalizing power and drive by the market or the growth model, the challenges for island countries, churches, and FBOs are huge. And this includes revisiting, reviving, and advancing all that REM means and stands for. And number two, that in view of REM as presenting uh, alternative to development discourse and practice, the challenges for church development partners are also likewise huge, including, for example, shifts in perspectives and modus operandi, but also with a sincere openness to the possibility of being challenged and changed, not only as an individual, but also as a person being part of an agency, an organization, or a church. And I will leave it at that because it's up to 20 minutes. So um, if there are questions, comments that you would like to raise, um, after this one, we go on to the and allow the General Secretary of the Pacific Conference of Churches to give us his input. And then there is the Talanoa session after that. So please take note of your comments and questions. Thank you very much indeed.